Here's what you've all been waiting for. An interview with Stephen Fryette of Fryette Amplification about the release of their new Deliverance Series 2 Plus amplifier by me, an AI-generated and crappily animated podcaster named Paul Caruso. You might remember me from radio station EXP back in the late 60s, but that's another story. Now on to the interview. Hey Steve, why the Series 2 Plus?
It's there. If I'm playing long enough on something that I'm used to and am familiar with, I naturally am going to find an excuse to go, I think I can do that. If I see somebody using the amp a certain way, I'm going to go, interesting. And then, but if I see that over and over again, I'm going to start thinking, is it something about the amp that makes them do that? And if that's what they're trying to do, is the amp facilitating that angle well enough? Could it do it better? They're just questions. I just throw questions up in the air, and if enough of those balloons go up that actually take flight, then I feel like, okay, you know what, it's maybe time to revisit, because I'm hearing the next evolution of it. A lot of people say, oh, it's great just the way it is, I wouldn't mess with it. But yeah, I would mess with it. And so if I would, then I will. If I won't, then I don't. Yeah, like the ether. If I go to the ether and I play through it, I go, yeah, I don't really, nothing about this is saying, hey, look over here. It just turned out that something about the Deliverance was saying that. So I'm just responding to that.
What do you say to people who say it's pointless and a great big waste to build big-ass amps in 2024?
Well, every time I hear that phrase, it just makes me do what I just did, which is my first reaction, who is asking? Because the people that are asking that question, who needs it, aren't the people that need it or want it. They're the people that believe that all their problems have been solved by modelers. And that may very well be true. That's not casting aspersions to people that are going, you know what, I've gone digital and I'm at home here, I'm happy with this, I'm done, I'm great. And to those people I say, fantastic. In the back of my mind, I'm actually saying, fantastic, I'll talk to you in 2 years and see where you're at. What's important is if you're looking for a place to go and what you're currently playing through isn't giving it to you, then here's an opportunity to explore something that might. So it isn't about big or power or tubes or transformers or weight or cost. It's really about, is this a viable thing in this day and age? I think that's really kind of the overriding question, and the answer is, if you believe it is, it is. If you think it is, yeah, it is. Size and weight and cost, are they buying decisions? Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know if that's a buying decision. If that was a buying decision, more people would be buying and driving really compact electric vehicles. But people are still buying 8-wheel pickup trucks and SUVs all day long with all the bells and whistles.
So does it simply boil down to personal style, where some people just like to play compact desktop modelers, whereas some other people prefer to play the gigantic prehistoric dinosaur amps?
Yeah, I think the dinosaur thing carries with it a sort of implied attitude. I know that when I go to a gig, I like to bring the dinosaur rig just to watch people's eyes pop out. You know, like, really? You know, they're like, okay, what's this going to be like? You know, should I head for the exits? I think the modeler person is just driven by practicality. It's clean, sits on my desk. It, you know, I can do this, I can do that, I can all the things that I can do with it. That's almost more workflow. Playing a big amp is not workflow. Playing a big amp is like riding a horse. You get on it and you go with it.
It does seem as if having a massive backline and being hella loud isn't as much a part of the rock and roll spirit as it once was.
I think the loud part of it, I think it started out from logical intention, which is the PA systems of the day were not that hot. But it turned into one-upmanship pretty quickly. And you saw that happening pretty frequently. You saw, okay, if the Who are going to follow Hendrix at Monterey, then we're going to double the volume and treble the damage. And that was purely showmanship. It was one-upmanship. It was just intentional. In parallel with the amplifiers needing to be more powerful and cut through more in larger venues, in parallel with that was just more stuff on stage because it was an impressive backdrop. And what else are you going to put as a backdrop on a band? What was going on before that? Before that, it was just curtains and lights, like a Broadway show. And then more visual stimulus was thrown on by more and bigger amplifiers and just lots of it. And then later on, bands that wanted to appear big, that weren't quite big yet, they put fake stacks of amps behind them just because they wanted that imposing appearance. But every time I saw a band that did that, it really fell flat because you knew that it was just a prop. There's a difference between a prop and seeing 8 amplifiers on stage all lit up and humming. There's a distinct different level of anticipation when you walk into a venue and you see and hear that. I remember going in and I'm just hearing this. Nobody thought about ground loops or hum or low noise on the stage or isolation transformers or any of that. It was just, and all the lights were on, and then the band came out. And fortunately, they played loud enough that they just drowned out the background noise. And then going forward, it's kind of going backwards when you see bands that don't have big gear on the stage anymore. They have scrims. They're back to curtains. Curtains and lighting and stage shows and props. So the amplifier doesn't really serve that role anymore. But guitar players still want the amplifier to play a role in their sound if they're serious about tone and feel and playing inspiration and the unique behavior between the guitar and the amplifier that only guitar and a tube amplifier produce. You know, and a modeler doesn't do that. Still, it's the behavior and the character and the instantaneous electroacoustic feedback that you get when you're playing an instrument into that kind of amplifier. That instrument combination gives you back something that nothing else gives you back. So that's its reason to exist, and there's still room for refinement in that. I just think that as long as there's room to evolve and develop tube amplifier technology, and as long as they're still available and people are still producing them, there's still going to be evolution and places to take it that just all solid state technology isn't going to replace.
Is there anything else you can offer us in regard to interesting little tidbits as far as the design or the overall history of the Deliverance is concerned?
The Deliverance originally came from a chance meeting with Leslie West and a conversation after he borrowed some of our gear at a gig and said, that was a big fat ass sound. Can you make me something like that I only need these features? And I said, yeah, I'd be happy to have that conversation with you. And so we started having the conversation, and one day he calls me up all fired up and he goes, okay, I got it. It's going to be the big fat ass amp. The big fat ass amp. Big fat ass amp, fat amp, something like that. And, you know, basically he wanted a loud, clean amp, but he understood that it would need to have some overdrive for people that were going to buy it. So he said, oh yeah, and you can put a dirty channel in there if you want, but for me, I just really want the blah, 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 blah. So we started, you know, I started laying out a design, and we had this conversation, and then the conversation kind of petered out about 2 years later. But I still kept it on the side and kept evolving the idea, and I just left the printing on the board iteration because it cracked me up. And it also reminded me when I went to see him play through our gear, what a blast it was, you know. So that was kind of the inspiration of it. And then at the time that amp was going to come into existence, there was still all this pushback about amps being produced on PCBs, and especially tube sockets being mounted on PC boards. And there's still a lot of holdover. People just think that that's bad or wrong or unreliable or blah, 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 all the things that are not true about PCB amps. I suppose it's true of some, but it's not true of all of them. And so I sort of made it a point to answer back to that narrative in my own little way, which was things like this: power tubes proudly and confidently PC mounted since 1989, which is when we started. That went on the first Deliverance boards. I don't know if I've got it on here, but oh yeah. This was an earlier iteration of the Deliverance. This was a response to all the guys that were constantly riffing on everything that's wrong about a PCB amp and the materials that were used, and that anything that violates that canon is bad. And I basically, my attitude about that was, you're absolutely entitled to your own opinion, here's mine. So this little statement about Teflon wire and point-to-point and all this stuff like that got revisited here. I wanted to keep that narrative alive when you look inside our amps and get a little Cracker Jacks message from us about how we view what we do. I didn't want to repeat that whole curmudgeonly statement from the previous boards, but I wanted to harken back to it. I did that by going, oh, and all that old stuff about point-to-point snubs, yeah, that still goes. It was just fun, but it's legit. It's not being sniping. It's just being, that's exactly, you know, not just how I feel about it, but how everybody in the company feels about it. We do the things we do the way we do them for the reason that we do them. And you can dispute or argue with any of those reasons and any of the outcome. You're welcome to debate that till the day you die. Meanwhile, we're going to be doing this, and we're going to be doing this, and we're going to be having fun doing it. And players that relate to what we're doing are going to continue to relate to what we're doing, and they're going to get more fun and enjoyment out of it. And is it big? Yeah. Is it an obscene amount of power? Most people don't go to clubs to get their heads pounded into the sand anymore. They go to listen to background music or enjoy music and have conversations at the same time. But there are still people like me that go to concerts where you go stand up and you get in the crowd and you interact with the crowd and you listen to the music and you take a beating once in a while. It's worth it. So this whole idea is that nobody plays that loud anymore. Okay, maybe they're not turning their amps up on stage as loud as they were before. Nevertheless, when you're out way in front of the audience, back away from the stage, you can stick your fingers in your ears all the way up to your knuckles and it won't be enough to attenuate the volume of the music coming out of the front of house. The front of house is replacing all the SPLs that used to emanate off the stage. What's going on the stage, you could probably carry on a conversation. In fact, I got up on stage while Helmut was playing and Page was having a problem with his new rig, his new pedal board. There was a wire that was not connected properly or something like that, so it was kind of breaking and working, and I just said, do you need any help? And he goes, yeah, there's something going on with my pedal board. I think there's a bad cable or something like that, and I did a little of this, and then it was fine for the rest of the set. But we had that conversation while he's playing this gargantuan music that they play. So the other side of that is that amp does not sound and feel like that with a guitar in your hands unless it's built that way. So there's going to be a place for that. There are players that want and depend on that and build their sound on that. And as long as that's the case, then there's a reason for this amp and amps like it to exist, and we're going to continue to produce them and evolve them and refine them and do everything that we like to do as long as we can realistically do it. There's no compelling reason not to, as far as we're concerned.
Well, thank you so much, Steve, for answering my questions, as well as a big thanks to our viewers for watching. Please like and subscribe to the channel for more content and junk like this. Although I've been informed that after this video I will no longer exist. Until we meet again, this is Paul Caruso signing off. Sincerely and AI fully yours.